Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Sayyid Ali Naki Kazmi, Department of Political Science, JPGC Mansera. Today's my topic is failure of the parliamentary democracy in Pakistan. So let's start. Before the abrogation of 1956 constitution, country was facing political instability. And the major reason for political crisis was the continuous changing of the prime ministers. From September 1956 to October 1958, in these 2 years, four prime ministers were changed. Swift political change in the country led to the demand for a new constitution, and consequently, on 7th of October 1958, martial law was imposed in the country, and the constitution of 1956 was abrogated. Let's start and discuss the causes for the failure of the parliamentary democracy. The first is the lack of leadership. The major reason for the failure of the parliamentary democracy was lack of the political leadership after the death and demise of the Qaid-e-Azam and Liaquat Ali Khan. There was no sincere leader of international stature emerged on the political scenario of Pakistan. So it was a main cause of the failure of the parliamentary democracy in Pakistan. The other cause was weak political parties. During those days, there was no organized and disciplined political parties. All parties were very weak and were facing many sanctions. No party had absolute majority to form government, and political parties were made and dissolved within no time, and floor crossing was frequent and very easy during those days. Ineffective role of political parties, because the role of political parties has an impact, positive impact on the success of democratic system, and success of democratic system depends upon the mechanism of political party politics, and political parties represent and organize the public opinion. But those days, role of political parties was not effective, and political parties were failed to educate people politically, and of course they failed to organize public opinion, which is the major function of political parties. Negative role of the head of the state, it is also a major reason. The head of the state played a very negative role. He adopted different strategies for the dismissal of the ministers from their offices. And this undue interference on the part of the head of the state created a situation in which a new constitution had to be introduced. President Skandar Mirza was continuously interfered in the affairs of legislature and assembly. Socio-economic factor. During the government of Feroz Khan Noon, there was inflation which was on its peak due to the hoarding, unjust and unfair distribution of wealth deteriorated the system. Rich was getting richer and poor was getting poor. So socio-economic contradiction also played a role in the failure of this constitution and the parliamentary democracy in Pakistan. The economic crisis in the country damaged the image of Pakistan in the world. People were fed up with this economic crisis in the country. Deadlock on electoral process. Deadlock on the issues of the separate and joint election between two provinces was also cause of the failure of the parliamentary democracy and the failure of the Constitution of 1956. Framers of the Constitution of 1956 failed to resolve this issue. And another cause for the failure of the 1956 Constitution was the electoral issue. And there was a deadlock on the determination of the electoral system in the country, that what type of the electoral system should be adopted in the country. There was no consensus. Similarly, Awami League, the Republican Party, and NAP favored a joint electorate system, while on the other hand, parties like Muslim League and Nizam-e-Islam demanded a separate electorate system. So there was a lack of consensus. And there was also a demand that in East Pakistan there should be a joint electorate system, and in West Pakistan there should be a separate electorate system. So this was the main reason. Lack of proper election. People were demanding for general election, which was promised by the president, but the promise was never fulfilled, which irritated people who started to demand immediate elections. And this non-fulfillment of promises also led to the failure of the 1956 constitution and ultimately the failure of the parliamentary democracy in Pakistan. Similarly, unicameral system. Normally in the federation there is always a bicameral legislature, but in 1956 constitution there is introduction of a unicameral legislature, which also became a cause for the failure of the constitution and the parliamentary democracy in the country. Another cause was lack of provincial autonomy. West Pakistan was made after four provinces as one unit, merged into one unit, and due to this step, autonomy of the four provinces was curtailed. And this also became a cause for the failure of the parliamentary democracy and the failure of the 1956 constitution of Pakistan. Struggle for power. Uh, Governor General Ghulam Muhammad and Prime Minister Nazmuddin were trying to have upper hand over each other, and this greed for power led the people to distrust their rulers, and this was also cause of the failure of the system. Misuse of power. The president, who was given wide powers under the 1956 constitution, misused those powers given to him by the constitution, and president behaved like a kingmaker, and this misuse of powers was one of the causes of the failure of the parliamentary democracy and the failure of the 1956 constitution of Pakistan. Uh, the other cause was the refugees problem. During those days, Muslims were migrating from India to Pakistan, and government was also busy in their rehabilitation and could not pay proper attention towards the political and constitutional crisis and towards the political and constitutional stability in the country. So I have discussed different causes and reasons for the failure of the parliamentary democracy in Pakistan and for the failure of the 1956 Constitution of Pakistan. If you have any question, you may ask in comments. Thank you very much.